Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Hive in Session. As always, I'm your host, Ben Lind, and I'm really pleased to be joined by Teresa Exelby from Community Integrated Care. Teresa, you're the Chief People Officer there, and a topic that I'm really excited to get into. We're going to talk about the move to a 4-day week.
Yep, indeed.
Fantastic. Well, look, I mean, I guess the big question really to start with is, where did that idea come from, and kind of how did you decide that it was going to be something that you were interested in implementing?
Yeah, so I guess as we progress through the pandemic and our ways of working shift so very significantly, we saw two things that perhaps surprised us a little. One is that our teams were incredibly productive working from home. And the flexibility that we had been forced to give people around, homeschooling kids, starting earlier, finishing later, finishing earlier, having bits of chunks of the day out while they had to go and do caring responsibilities or whatever, didn't impact our productivity. So we found that people were as committed as before, were as productive as before. And actually, whilst we definitely felt a loss of building relationships because people weren't present together in a building, the effort put into reaching out to building networks and communities and teams, actively, purposefully spending time together to have fun and engaging in a different way, I think really made us think about, well, okay, how can we use this opportunity that's being presented to us and take the best out of it? Mm-hmm. So that's one thing. The second is, we also know that this has been a really stressful time for people, and that well-being, not only in our support services function, which is more of a traditional office style, but also at our frontline, we're a social care provider. People, we would call them frontline heroes that have been going to work every day throughout the pandemic. The sense of well-being, the need to balance life and work and all of those other commitments that are in people's lives is increasingly important as they face a whole set of other stresses and strains that the pandemic has brought on. So I guess two kind of impetuses for change: one, knowing that we could and we could still be productive, and the second, knowing that we had to be able to protect our workforce going forward.
I think those are, in terms of the reasons for doing so, I think those are, I think it's great that, you can have the data there that kind of backs up kind of such a radical shift, and then also, using it not to say like, okay, we've got this, but we can fall back on it as and when we want to, like maybe it's something that we pull out of the hat as more of a firefighting measure or whatever, but to actually go, okay, we're going to be, proactive with this and have it be something that we can implement, not just to the benefit of our people, but I'd imagine, to the benefit of the organization as well. I mean, I think that, whenever I kind of talk to people about things like this, and I think remote working and kind of hybrid working and stuff kind of factors into this discussion as well, you often hear people talking about kind of being able to score some points in kind of the battle for recruitment and bringing people in and stuff like that. Was that kind of a part of the thinking? Like maybe if you had to kind of get buy-in from other parts of the business that might have been a bit difficult to persuade, was that kind of a card that you could play? Or was this really just about saying, look, it isn't going to hurt us and it will only make people, happier and increase their well-being and things?
Yeah, I get, of course, being a compelling place to work and being able to recruit and attract the best talent is up there on everybody's kind of list of what they want to be able to do. And so having a 4-day week and actually just a much more flexible approach to how people choose to work is definitely important when you're trying to recruit people. And it gives us a point of difference, certainly in our sector at the moment. But I think if we go back to how we ended up with a 4-day week being the answer for us, from the outset, it had to achieve, it had to be better than it was already for our colleagues, for our customers, which for us is the people that we support, and for the organisation as a whole. And if all of those three groups of stakeholders didn't see an improvement, then we knew we had to tweak something in the pilot. And that's why we've rolled it out as a series of pilots so that we can learn and adapt and change as we go. And And we've used kind of a number of different measurement tools, which I can talk about later, to make sure that all of those groups feel like this is better than it was before. And it has to be all of them, not just one group. So I think that's important. The second thing is, by moving to 4 days and asking a workforce that is already working really long hours to, in essence, lose 20% of their time and still complete the same amount of work, for lots of people was a kind of a proper scratch your head kind of, how can that possibly work kind of thing. And there was lots of pushback to say, can we not work 4.5 days and have an early dart on a Friday? Having done this previously in another organisation, I knew that if you don't make the step radical enough, what you do is you just try and do what you've always done and make it a bit quicker. But you can't genuinely put 5 into 4 and make those 4 days really quality if you don't fundamentally change some of the ways of working. Because you want your workforce to be more productive, because we set out those objectives to begin with. It's got to be better for everyone. So I want them to be more productive. I want them to give better service. I want people to feel like they've got extended hours of support. And so to be able to do that, you fundamentally have to review and change those routines that you've taken for granted for however many years. So examples are, everybody puts a meeting in for an hour. Well, not anymore. Every meeting is 45 minutes. Everybody was always working through their lunch. Well, not anymore. We ask people to block out as a meeting in their calendar when they're going to have lunch during the day. We still ask for meetings only to happen between 9 in the morning and 4:35 in the evening. And that gives people an hour at both ends of the day to be able to do their work. And we asked people to either take a Monday or a Friday off. And what that has done, if you're working on a Monday and half your colleagues aren't there, you have a whole day now to get stuff done, as opposed to this back-to-back meetings. And what people have described is, I'm working on a piece of work, and where I used to be dipping in and out of a presentation or a spreadsheet over the course of 5 days whenever I could grab half an hour, that piece of work probably took me 4 hours to do. I now have an hour and a half on a Monday, and I'm not interrupted, and I'm cracking through it, and it's done. And so by condensing our meetings over 3 days, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, by giving people a full day when they can work and enabling them to set up and wrap up, they've become so much more productive and so much more planful. You can't assume that you're going to be able to pick the phone up and someone's going to be there. You have to be thoughtful about when you're going to book people's time. And so we've gone from kind of a slightly winging it and hoping for the best to much more thoughtful and respectful of each other's time as well. And it's only with that significant shift, I think, that you can deliver those objectives and improvements that I talked about before. It's the insanity thing, isn't it? We'll just do what we did before and expect a different outcome.
It doesn't happen like that. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, I have to say, I'm absolutely, I'm blown away at, not just the fact that, granted you trialed it in another, you'd implemented it in another organization, but then to bring it across to this and to, not just kind of have the courage, if you like, to kind of try and implement it in a different organization, in a different sector, but the amount of, the planning that's gone into this. And I actually think the sort of like the attitude of it all, like how kind of progressive it's been. I think that still for a lot of organizations to admit that, look, when we're in meetings, we're not really working, that we are, spreading projects that could be done in a matter of hours out across a number of days because we are being trapped with, busy work essentially, rather than the real kind of meaningful work. And I think that, for a lot of organizations, even who weren't, who were just looking to alter meeting policy or something like that, that might be quite a tough admission to make for them, just to kind of be like, oh, actually, yeah, maybe we're not being as productive or efficient as we possibly could be. So yeah, to have been able to kind of raise a hand, if you like, as a business and just go, hey, look, there's a better way of doing it, and we're going to find out how to do it. I'm really loving the sound of that, to be honest, Teresa.
Yeah, and I think it hasn't felt hard to do, because the engagement and the buy-in at the top of the organization, so Mark, our chief exec, and across our CFO and our COO, they all immediately and intuitively knew that it could be better. And I think coming off the back of what has been a massive shift in how we all work, it didn't feel like a negative thing to go, well, we used to do this. We used to do a very strict 9 till 5 days a week. Then we've gone to, oh my gosh, like whatever people can do to be able to work. And so we're not saying either of those were bad. We're saying, well, what's going to come next? And so actually doing it off the back of an unprecedented experience means that we're not really criticizing where we are. We're just trying to proactively shape where we want to be in the future.
And I was quite, obviously, I noted that you said there that, there had been kind of almost like a pilot style approach to this, like so was that kind of rolling it out in certain sections of the business and taking the learnings from that and then looking to roll it out in addition? Because this is kind of a hark back to a former episode of Hive in Session that we did, where, one of the guests was really talking about, that kind of prototyping and piloting phase, and really the importance of that and making sure that you're getting as much learnings as you can before you refine and then look to roll it back out. So yeah, how important has that kind of pilot approach been in this?
Yeah, massively. So we went with 2 teams within the organization, and they were slightly different. One was a very office-based finance function, and the other was our quality function, which has people that are working in services out in the field. It has people that are in very bespoke and single jobs. So, health and safety manager, there's only one of them. So what happens when they're not in on a Friday? So that we could really trial and test what works in different functions. And from doing those 2 pilots, we happened upon, I guess, a set of principles that we could then say, well, let's see if this is going to work for everybody else. And we also got into a routine of measurement, so identifying the objectives for their teams. Who are their customers? How will we measure whether productivity has gone up or stayed the same or what have you? What does success look like? And we were able to build kind of a facilitation guide for all managers then to say, look, what we've found in this pilot is, some kind of measurement of engagement early doors, followed by a number of collective team working sessions through the pilot, a midpoint check-in and an end of pilot check-in. That has given us the ability for people to raise their hand and go, oh, this is really hard, or this isn't working. You go, great, we knew there would be some of this stuff. Collectively, what do we think we can do about that then? And so people have been really motivated, I think, to come up with solutions to the problems they're facing. So, from that process, we identified that people needed a buddy, because when your customer is coming to you on a Monday or a Friday, they don't just want an out of office. They want to know that there is absolutely somebody that you can signpost, that they will be able to help. And so we work through all the things like, well, what about if you're off on a Monday and your buddy's on holiday that week? How's that going to work then? And how's this going to work? And actually, there are so many questions about how it's going to work. And I kept saying, I haven't got the answers, but if we want to do it, we'll have to figure out the answers together.
Yeah.
And we have, and not all teams are exactly the same, because they all have different purposes and different roles within the organization. And so I think it's about creating a really clear framework for people to operate within, and then giving them the flexibility and the freedom to go, well, how do I get the best answer for my customer, for the team, and for the organization as a whole, so we still sit within the values of what it is we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned there, kind of having sort of regular check-ins or giving people the regular opportunity to feed back. Kind of how important have those kind of frequent touch points around, not just engagement, but just kind of an open forum to just to let us know how it's working. Is there anything that we haven't thought of? How kind of important have those opportunities of both, I suppose, structured and more unstructured kind of feedback been?
Yeah, massively. And so what you'll find is different leaders have different styles already. So there are some teams that won't have done one formal check-in. That's probably me, really, as I'm thinking about it. But within my team meetings, we talk about how's the 4-day week going every week. And it's just part of what's on the agenda at the moment, so that people can raise issues really quickly and we can work them and then make sure that we are applying things consistently and fairly across the function. And then there's, some leaders and managers who like to be really, really very planned. And so they will allot time and say, right, in 2 weeks' time, we're going to talk about nothing else but this. And we're going to have it on a Jamboard, and we're going to do Post-its, and we'll have a facilitator. And, and that's what works for them and the style and personality of their team. And I think all of it is fine, as long as we're giving people the opportunity to hold their hand up and say, I love this bit, but I really don't like that bit. Or this isn't working for me. And the other thing that was important in our approach was we said that anybody could opt out. And this was really fundamental. The assumption, so the ingoing assumption is people want to do this.
Yeah.
And for line managers who perhaps aren't entirely persuaded yet, they're all doing it. So people then have to opt out of the process, and it's absolutely fine. And especially we've found people, certainly with young children, because we're running a condensed 4-day week, if you start at 8 and finish at 6, and you've got a couple of young kids and they're in bed at 6:30, and they're just getting up, that just doesn't work. And so that's fine. That's absolutely fine. If 5 days still works for people for whatever reason, they can continue to work 5 days. Mm-hmm. And we also said if people wanted to work 80%, that's fine too. So they could take a reduction in pay of 20% and just work 4 normal days if they wanted as well. So it was a real push on, what do you want? Like, how would you like to work? And so I think by having the opt out, it meant that everybody felt like it was safe to give it a go, which was really important.
That's brilliant. What I guess 2 questions, if I could. Like, I would say, what's the biggest thing that you've learned from doing this? And then what's been the thing that surprised you the most from doing this?
I think what I've learned most is probably, so I quite liked, my natural style is to control and organize. The importance of letting people bring their personality to the process and do it their way that fits them and their team whilst working within a framework was really important. You can't just demand that people deliver workshops and engagement and inclusion in a particular way. It just doesn't work. It has to suit them and how their team works. I think the bit I've been most surprised about is how quickly everybody's gone, oh my God, this is awesome. Like even the people who were the most skeptical, I can't believe how much more productive we are. I can't believe how we're getting more stuff done. Like the sense that all of this work could fit into 4 days was impossible for people to get their heads around. And yet, because they're more productive and because they're more planned and a bit more organised, they're kind of just jumping into it really quickly. And change is always difficult for people, isn't it? But I always sense when you kind of say to them, well, would you like to go back to what we've got before? And they're like, oh God, no, don't take it away. You go, okay, there's still things we need to learn and it's definitely not perfect yet, but it's definitely much better than where we were before.
Definitely. And, I think from a morale and from a kind of teamwork perspective and stuff, I think from just psychologically, like to be able to look at yourself and then look around at your colleagues and go, look how much we're doing in an entire day less. Like you must feel just, amazing about yourself as well.
Yeah, and also all of the other stuff that is a distraction, Monday to Friday, 9 till 5, that you are trying to fit into your work day. So whether that be, I really want to try and pick the kids up from school once a week, or I need to go to the dentist, or I need to take the dog here, or I need to do that, or I need to do that. Like people just, we're kidding ourselves if we thought people weren't doing that. Because they are. Like so much of society is still only open 9 till 5, or if you want to access it. And so people were absolutely doing that in their working time, and rightly so. But now they're doing it in their own time on their day off, and they don't feel that pressure of, oh God, will anybody notice that I've been to the bank, or I've had to go and pick that parcel up, or I've had to do that. They're doing that as they choose to do it in their own time. So I think there's a bit about, treating people like adults as well, and kind of going, well, we all know what we've got to get done. Personally, I've worked 4 days. My eldest is now 13. I've worked 4 days a week for 13 years.
Wow.
And had really senior roles, for probably 10 of those 13 years. So I just know it can be done. And I know that perhaps had I not have done that, I might not have continued with my career at the same rate. And I think for whatever the circumstance, whether it's children, whether it's caring, whether it's another passion that somebody has that they want to fit in, enabling people to reach their potential, giving them flexibility in how they do that is just so important in terms of getting the best talent in the organisation and keeping them.
That's fantastic. Well, look, Teresa, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I've got maybe 2 more questions, if that's okay, and then I'll let you go. I guess I'm curious to know, what does the future of this look like? Are you kind of still in the rollout phase, or is this kind of up and running now? And kind of what are the next, I guess, 3 and 6 months of this look like? And then finally, I guess a good one to close out would just be, I imagine a lot of people are going to click on this, out of curiosity and kind of thinking, 4-day work week sounds great. Like, what advice would you give to somebody who was like maybe seriously considering this? So
for the future, what we've done is brilliant. And it is giving much better support because we have extended operating hours and support services now. Rather than 9 till 5, we're actually 8 till 6, 5 days a week. And we've built some weekend working in as well. So whilst that's great, so far it's for the 300 people really that work in our support services and our kind of leadership roles in the field. What we need to do next is take that to our service leaders that are running our services, and then work on flexible working options for our frontline social care providers and support workers. So that is what we are focusing on now. We've done some research in terms of what that looks like, how it can work, and I'm really excited about doing something at the frontline in social care around flexibility. It's pretty much rolled out everywhere else within the organisation. In terms of advice, this isn't waking up on a Monday and saying to people, would you all like to do 4 days a week and we'll just change your contract? Like, I love simplicity, but it's not that. And if you try and do that, I think it will fail, because you'll literally be taking 5 days and trying to squeeze them into 4. So it needs real thought, and nobody will have all the answers at the off, because every organisation is different, every scenario is different. So being really upfront about, we haven't got all the answers, but if we want to do it, we can figure it out together. And knowing that this is it sounds kind of really corny, but knowing that it's a journey, and it's going to take some time to get there, but it's worth it, is definitely the case. It isn't a overnight, let's all work 4 days next week, because you'll just get 20% less productivity. And then people feeling like they're not achieving what they wanted to, and then that'll lead to feelings of frustration and, well, then working secretly on their 5th day, which is not the idea either.
That's amazing. Teresa, thank you so very much for spending some time with us. I really appreciate it.
Welcome, no problem.
And thank you everybody for watching another episode of Hive in Session. We'll see you in the next one.